For the lecture this week, I just wanted to go over a few things that are important from your textbook. One thing to remember is this book is talking about instructional models, and so that's what this course is going to be talking about. Not specifically just what you teach, but how you teach. So as a teacher, it's very unique in your job because you have certain curriculum or certain concepts that you need to get across to your students, but the way you teach those concepts and that curriculum is unique. So in this textbook, it goes over a whole bunch of different instructional models that you can use in physical education to get the content across to your students in the most productive way and the best way for your students to learn that content. Your textbook talks about the NASP standards, and right after this textbook was published, those standards changed to Shape America standards. So this is the website that has the standards now for the national standards in physical education. And so in your textbook they talk about 6 different standards, and in the in the Shape America standards, there's 5. So they took one of the standards and sort of combined it with the other one, and so now there's 5 instead of 6. So these are the standards that you're going to be using for this class, and also this is what's happening right now nationally in physical education standards. So just know that the book is just a little bit outdated in those standards. Many, if not all, school districts have now gone to what's called curriculum guides. And in those curriculum guides, they tell the teacher what they're supposed to be teaching on that day for that subject, and it gives the standards that it addresses, it gives the objectives for the day. It pretty much does the whole lesson plan for the student, for the teacher. Now, those curriculum guides are usually just for core curriculum. So science and math and language arts and the core curriculum. Physical education, for the most part, at least what I've observed, they do not have curriculum guides for that. So you as a physical educator are going to need to create your own curriculum guides or your own lesson plans so that you can tell your students and your administration and your families of the students what it is that you're actually going to be teaching your students. And so I want to talk just a little bit about what's involved in the lesson plan. One of the major components for that curriculum is the standard, and so this is the picture of the front of the California physical education standards, K through 12. And so when writing lesson plans, you're going to have to address what standards are being taught for that lesson. The textbook talks about the 3 learning domains, and so we're going to go through those 3 learning domains in great depth as we're going through this class. So just make sure that you know the difference between the 3 domains. The psychomotor is what we usually think of in a physical education class, and the one that makes it more unique than any of the other classes because you're actually physically doing something while you're thinking about it. So we're dribbling a basketball while we're thinking about doing it. Okay, so the psychomotor domain. And then we have the cognitive domain. It's just we're doing our thinking, we're doing our explaining, we're doing our extrapolating, we're doing our students are showing us what they've learned by either showing some strategies of offensive and defensive, or they're showing us that they understand the rules by, taking a written test maybe. And then we have the affective domain that is talking about how we're showing teamwork or how we're enjoying the sport that we're participating in or not enjoying the sport, how we're getting along with our classmates, how we are using morals. Okay, this is the affective domain. So those are the 3 domains of learning and how they would relate to physical education class. In the CAP this week, you're going to be writing some objectives for the sport, the team sport, and the lifestyle activity that you chose. So I want you to be able to write a clear objective, and so to do that, we need to use action verbs. So when we write an objective, we need to make sure that it's specific and it's measurable. We can tell if the student has met that objective or not. If we just say, students will know how to dribble a basketball, well, how are we going to see that they know it? So we can use some of these verbs to see that. So the student might be able to demonstrate. Okay, see how we use the word demonstrate. Demonstrate a dribble, a correct dribble. Okay, so that could be one way to write an objective. So these are just some verb words that you can use when writing your objectives for your CAP 1 this week. Remember, you need to be able to measure or be able to see if the student has met that objective or not. So don't just say the student will know how to do something or the student will understand. Those words are not measurable. You can't measure understanding, but you can measure if they illustrated something to you or if they recognized the proper setup for bowling, like how the pins go, if they recall something, or if they estimate how long it would take to do something, or if they set up something, if they can illustrate a picture for you about what a lacrosse stick looks like or something like that. So when we're doing the objective, remember, you need to make sure that it is measurable. It is something you can see, something you can know about, something you can, what I like to think of it as a SMART objective, and I use the letters SMART, so it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's reasonable, and it's timely. So in the last one, timely could mean that like a student will demonstrate the proper shooting skill, in lacrosse 3 out of 5 times or something like that. So that would be timely, 3 out of 5, or be able to recall 5 of the 10 safety rules for archery or something like that. So remember to use action verbs, and these aren't all the action verbs, these are just an example of what you can do when making those objectives. So let's go back to talk about the instructional model. So we know what we want to teach, the what that we're going to teach our students. And the instructional models is looking at how we're going to teach that. And so on page 43 of your text, which is part of your reading this week, it talks about how to select the instructional model that would best fit what you're going to be wanting to do for that lesson. And so it's a really nice way to go through and ask yourself, okay, so first of all, what do I want my students to learn about? And so you pick whatever that content is that you want them to learn about. And then you ask, what domains have priority? So remember we talked about the psychomotor, the cognitive, and the affective. So you're going to look at, okay, so do I want my the priority of the domain be able for them to learn the skill? It is the skill of that subject that I'm teaching, that content I'm teaching, is skill most important. If skill is most important, then that would be your first priority. And then you look at, okay, next, do I want them to be able to know the rules, or do I want them to have good sportsmanship? Which is more important? And then, so I rank them, what's most important. And so once I do that, then I look at the models that are in this textbook and determine what models have those same priorities. And then, like, I'm not going to go through all of page 43 with you, but basically you just go through all the sections of page 43 and you come up with what instructional model would be best for teaching the specific content I want to get across to my students and how I'm going to teach that. So those are just a few thoughts I had for this week in our lecture, and I will leave you with that.